Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Horse Business, and today we've been joined by Jenni Bush. Jenni is an equestrian business coach, mentor, and has had a huge amount, years of experience working in the industry. Jenni spent some time working right at the start for a charity, then teaching kids how to ride, and has gone all the way through to today where she is mentoring and helping other equestrian businesses change their life, implementing systems, teaching people how to use social media, and really using her knowledge of all the years teaching children and actually now putting that into practice with us as adults, as business people. So please enjoy the show. Here's Jenni. Jenni, thank you ever so much for joining me here today. Travelled a long way to get here, so it was great to meet you finally. I've been watching you on socials for some time.
Oh, thank you for inviting me, George. I'm really pleased to be here.
Absolutely. And I'm really excited to get into this conversation because you are really focused on equestrian business and exactly what we're here to showcase and talk about to the audience and to those listening at home. So for me, I'd really love to get started to allow people to understand who you are. What brought you to doing your programs now and what you do in your networking. So take us back. What started your interest in the horse industry? Having horses, so you have it as a child?
Yeah, to be fair, my introduction into the horse industry is probably a little bit different to most people's. I wasn't brought up in a horsey family. Okay. I didn't have ponies as a child, but I was really, really desperate to be around horses, to ride horses. You know, you just feel like you're called to do something. And as a kid, I managed to finally persuade my parents when I was about 11 to let me go and join a charity, which would teach you to ride and to do all of the care and everything. And from that age, I sort of progressed. But then my parents decided that they wouldn't pay for me. I was far too naughty or something like that. and so that sort of progressed into me actually working for the charity and teaching, but also sort of coming on as a charity trustee and a director at one point. And I did that for about 20 years.
Wow.
So I learned to teach horse riding, got all of that. In the meantime, because a lot of that was voluntary, so I never ever earned any money, I then had to work aside from that. So I was doing like two lives almost, where I was in a full-time job working in corporate stuff. I worked in schools, I've worked in retail, I've worked in insurance, and so I got a lot of experience from that side of business. And then with what I was doing as a company director and charity trustee, left working in the corporate world and went to work for an equestrian centre.
Okay.
And then I was also a mum and just trying to run everything, and it all got a bit too much for me. If I was on, and I got to the point where I pretty much had a breakdown. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this. I'm not a good mum. I can't be a business. I can't do all of this stuff. And I just stopped everything. I was like, I'm done. I'm just done.
Wow.
And then after about 3 months, I thought, I've got to do something. Because my husband isn't going to put up with me for too much longer, just sitting at home doing absolutely nothing. And then I decided that I'd be a virtual assistant and I'd work online, and didn't get anywhere. So after about 3 months of going, this isn't work, I was like, Jenni, for goodness sake, you do know what you're doing. You need to actually now just apply yourself and stop trying to make, you know, when people just set up a business, they want everybody to come to them. They think, I'll just sit here and wait for everybody to come to me.
Okay.
And I was like, no, you know horses, you know business, you know equestrian business. And so I went out there with that niche and that target, got my clients really quickly, but as a virtual assistant. So I was helping them with social media, I was helping them with admin. And before I knew it, they started to ask me, Jenni, how do you do this? How do you do that? And then I started to coach business. But I was already a coach as a equestrian coach, helping people to learn to ride, mainly children. So I'm really good at explaining how to do things in 100 million different ways.
Yes.
And then I decided, okay, I was going to retrain as a business coach. And here we are today, 6 years later.
Wow, that is a journey. There's so much to unpick in there. Probably should have stopped you halfway through and said, right.
That's the short version.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. So you've done a lot. So it's fair to say that when you joined the charity, you then you obviously started riding horses, because you hadn't at that point ridden when you started that.
No.
And now, are you still riding today?
I am. I have my own horses. I've got two at the moment. I'm not riding competitively because life is just crazy. Plus, I got this Irish horse he's got a tendon sheath issue, so he's very unsound. So I can hack him around the farm if on a good day. And then my other horse is an ex-race horse that my daughter rides. So I'm very much, no, Mum, you can't do anything. He's my horse.
It's my horse, yeah, of course. Oh, it's nice that you've given them that option to start, even though you perhaps didn't have it as well.
Yeah, I think it's really grounding. As a mother, like it's been really good for my daughters to have that sense of having to look after something other than themselves, to have to show up. I think it's really good life skills that horses can teach us that I don't think we get from other things.
No. I can see that. I was actually a little bit like yourself. Perhaps I didn't start riding until I was 15 or 16. And unfortunately, my father was of the opinion that perhaps I shouldn't ride, didn't really want to support it, which I don't blame him. He's got his own preconceived ideas and thoughts about it. But obviously then once I did, exactly like you, it was responsibility for another animal. It also gave me, something to look forward to and enjoy. And a bit like yourself, it was like, I felt like I was being called to do that. For years before I actually got involved with horses, I always wanted to. So I don't regret that at all. And it's just, there's something about that, isn't there?
Yeah. And I think it's harder. Yeah, I think it's much harder when you are a boy wanting to get into horses because it is very female orientated, especially at that grassroots level. It's only when you get up to the top levels you can see that actually there's a lot of men up there, but at the bottom it's mainly girls, isn't it?
No, absolutely. And I think it'd be fair to say my dad sort of assumed, as much as I maybe don't want to say it on a podcast, but he sort of assumed that boys that ride are gay. Yeah. And there's that preconception about it, but actually it's not the case.
And I must admit, there's a lot of boys that I've taught. They're now actually professionals in the industry. A lot of them went racing. Yeah. But again, they used to struggle with that. And I say, well, when your friends ask you, and start to tease you, say, well, come and sit on one, and then we'll see who's the biggest,
exactly.
Who's a man here? Because most boys would probably be scared.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously there's nothing wrong with anything and no one's sexuality, but that was a preconceived idea he had. But anyway, right, so that's amazing. And then I'd love to know a little bit more about, so you joined the charity and then you've obviously done 20 years there, but in the meantime you've worked in other industries. How did that give you the skills, do you think, to build what you're building now? Were there certain things, soft skills in there that you were valuable?
I think I also, in between that, I had another business, which was a retail online business. I did bridal jewellery. So I became an award-winning business there, but I had a lot of problems, which I ended up closing the business with no money. So I learned a lot of lessons through that, which really helped me with this business. But also, I think there's a level of things that are done in the corporate world that haven't yet come into the equestrian sort of world and the way that people run things. Also, I've done so many different things. So like the way that insurance is working, so using tools and systems and platforms, and I worked in schools. I've done teaching assistant roles in maths departments.
Wow.
And then I did business support in secondary schools. So I've seen so many different angles of how things could be done. But I think I've always been a bit more like a coach anyway. I think just because I've taught children to ride for so long, I've been able to see things and go, right, how do I help you here? Not how do I teach you? How do I help you? Wow. And getting those questions and being able to put those to people so that they can come up with their answers. And I think that's a big part of what I do is like when I'm coaching people, I don't need to know how they do it. I don't need to know all the ins and outs of their business. What I need to do is I need to know what questions to ask to get them out of their head, what questions to ask to find the solutions, because I think that's where people often get stuck in their business and they're just like, well, I can't see a way out of this. I'm so overwhelmed. I don't know how to do that. And I'm just very techie anyway. Okay. So when it's a big issue with the equestrian industry. A lot of people are like, as soon as you pick up a computer or anything, they're like, no, I don't do tech. I can't do social media. I can't do all of that. So that's brought skills in. And of course, with my last business, it was just at when Facebook was being born. So like literally like I was one of the first people doing business stuff on Facebook. So I've seen how it's evolved and also what works and what doesn't work. Yes. And I've been able to bring that to help people from other industries into what we're doing in the equestrian industry.
Okay. Wow, again, a lot in there. I'm trying to
Yeah,
keep
sorry,
up with you. No, you're fine. It's a really great stuff. So I was going to make a point that your communication skills really have come because you started right from teaching the children how to ride. And I have to say, not everyone can be a coach, and clearly you've got it down. You've nailed it, because it's not telling them what they need to do. It's not going in their business and saying, that's rubbish. It's actually asking them the questions and get them to feed it back to you. And then in their own way, they work themselves out of their head, their whole, wherever they are.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I combine that with a little bit like, okay, this is what I can teach you. But most of the time it's only when they need me to teach them that. And a lot of people come to me and they're just like, well, Jenni, how do I do this and how do I do that? Which I can do. That's absolutely fine. But people get stuck on so many things. And I think what we fail to recognise is business and life often are so intertwined, and we want to keep it separate, but it's not the way it always works. And so sometimes, even when I'm coaching people, we'll be going through things that they're going on in their lives, things that have impacted them that's actually stopping them moving forward. And we'll be working on that just as much as we are the business. I think a lot of people come to me and they expect me to suddenly bring out, let's do the business plans and all of that. And they're like, oh no, we didn't do that. But actually, I'm about helping them long term.
Yeah.
Which a business plan, we all know, you make the plan, you look at the plan goes out the window anyway. So.
Absolutely. And actually, within a period of time, what you wrote down there might not be necessarily where you are in 3 months' time. So, I see what you mean about that.
Yeah, exactly. And even then, I'm working on doing a planning for November with people. So it's one thing that I do. We plan the next year with all the people that work with me, and I call it like Nail It Plan 2020, whatever. And even then, I've got to talk about how I sat down last year and made plans for this year, and March they went out the window. But even though that happened, because I'd made that plan, I was able to then, when I was ready, get back on track. To go, okay, this is where I wanted to be. This is what I wanted to do. How can I get myself back on course? And that's the joy of a plan. It's not necessarily to make it straight A to B. Yeah. It's about going, okay, if I fall off there, I know where I'm headed to get back into my plan to get where I want to be in my business. And I think that's really, really key.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And then I think that my listeners might be wondering, because you've alluded to something in March, and obviously I've heard a little bit about it with you before we got into the conversation, but can we just touch on that, how that changed things for you? Has it changed how you do your business now? Do you mind sharing that?
No. So basically everything was going really great in business. I went off to the National Equine Show, we got stuff done. And then at the end of March, like literally 28th of March, my husband went off to work at 7:30 in the morning. 8:30, I got a call from an ambulance. He'd had a stroke. And it's quite a severe stroke. He's had a bleed on the brain. He's ended up losing half his skull. And it's been horrific. Like, I have had a terrible 6 months. The past 6 months have just been insane. But the joy of the way that I'd intentionally planned my business, because I'd set it up when I had the children, I wanted to be a good mum. So I'd set it up with that intention of, I need this business to provide my life. So I was instantly able to divert the business so that I could still have the same income. I'd already set up recurring revenue. So I was able to take two months off, not lose any money, still support my clients. Like, they'll all tell you, I still was there because I've got a system that works, even though I couldn't work. I've then now dropped down to 4 days a week, some days even less, because depending on things that I have to do, because of course I still have to do hospital visits several times a week. We've still got lots of stuff going on. But my business is actually getting bigger and stronger, even though I'm going through that really tough time. And I think that's really key in business. It's like, none of us are immune from life. We don't know what's around the corner. So it's like, how can you make sure that this business is something that it's going to provide for you forever and be able to bring stuff in and to give you the life that you want, even when life doesn't go the way you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, that is so powerful. I'm sure the listeners are very much, that's really powerful. There's a lot of people that go through a lot of things, and it is how you deal with it. And I'm sure it's still really hard today, even though it was a few months ago now. But still, you've managed to build that system, which is what it's all about, isn't it? Because often people will run their equestrian businesses, albeit a livery business, or sort of as a side hustle, and they don't really think about, from my experience, the system that goes in to then make it happen. What happens if something happens to you? Your family, what happens? So the system seems like a key ingredient that people need.
Yeah, I think it really, really is. And so what I try to imagine, like to help people to imagine in their business, is think of it like a schoolmaster. You know, when you've done enough training on that horse, you could put anybody on it, and they all are able to produce that dressage test that looks flipping amazing, even though you know it's the horse that's done the work. We want the same in your business. We want that business to be that workhorse that actually does the work. So it doesn't matter if you're there or if you put somebody else in charge today, the results are still consistent.
Yeah.
And there's so many things that people could do to improve their businesses like that, and they don't know how to do it, and they haven't thought of it like that. But it makes such a big difference, and a lot of it comes through systems, mindset, and strategy.
3 key things that I think the equestrian industry need. And I can draw upon that from my own business, because I'm running a horse transport business. We touched on it earlier. And I'm now very much at the stage where I have been running around a bit like a headless chicken. And it's like, well, actually, I know how to build these systems. I'm doing it for other people. And, you know, I've got people around me that can help me. So I now need to implement that system, because it's not sustainable long term. It's not, you know, you end up a busy fool, basically.
Yeah. And you want to be able to create something, ideally, that either you could sell, so the business has got some value to it, or say, I can't think the charity I used to work for was the Horse Rangers, and I remember the lady that founded it. She said the sign of a good army is it still marches even when somebody's. I totally hashed that, but you know, when the leader isn't there, everybody still is on the same page and is on the same ethos, and I think that's really. That would make such a massive difference in the equine industry, especially with a lot of riding schools, especially with a lot of livery yards. Do you know what? Like, how much less stress would the owner have if they'd actually built that in? You know, if they got those better conversations, if they were able to lead better, if they didn't lose their staff because they actually believed in the whole what they're doing. But I think we get so stuck in the day-to-day, got to do all this stuff, that you just don't even have the brain space to even think of that. And sometimes people won't even allow themselves the brain space to think of it.
I suppose that's a lot of mindset work. I suppose that's also part of what you do with your clients. It's about, you know, you can do it a different way. You don't have to do it all yourself. You can implement a team. You can implement a process. I guess that's a lot of what you do.
Yeah. And I think it's one of the things that I often say to people, it's almost like I see a lot of people in their equine businesses. It's like they're going, I'm working so hard, I'm working so hard, I'm working so hard. But it's a bit like pushing a wheelbarrow with a flat tyre. You know, it's like, it's hard work. And there's that satisfaction because it's really hard. But actually, if they stood back, they'd go, that's really stupid. Like, all I've got to do is pump that up and I can things would be better. Absolutely. But they don't give themselves that space to stand back. And so I often say that is the joy of having a mentor or a coach, because they're able to stand back and get that perspective for you when you can't. And I know you spoke about this in your previous podcast about like the E-myth.
Yes.
And so I try and sort of put that to people and say, well, actually, in your business, there should be 3 people. It's a bit like you've got the rider, you've got the horse, and you've got the coach. So like the coach would stand back and see, okay, this is where you're going, this is where you've been. I can see the whole picture. This is what it looks like. You've got the rider who's managing the horse, and then you've got the horse who's just like, I want to do my own thing. And a lot of people run their business as the rider and the horse, and not as the coach that stands back. And so that's why when you've got that in your business, they help you to see that bigger picture when you can't. And of course, when things get wobbly or when you fall off, you've got that safety net. If I've got somebody that I can turn to who gets what I'm trying to build and can pick me up and get me moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's where a lot of people are lacking.
Wow. I'm sure people can resonate with that at home, listening to this. So, yeah, no, I resonate with it as well. I've tried to run equestrian businesses. I've now got the horse transport. I totally resonate with all of that. So thank you for sharing that. I now want to switch over to social media.
Okay.
Because I've seen that you do a lot of social media. You clearly have had, I believe, coaching programs in social media. And with the equestrian world at the moment being a bit of a highlighted topic in social media and across the media in terms of things that have happened, which have caused us all to be blown up in in a picture that they're all perceiving us to be terrible horse people. How does that affect us as equestrian businesses trying to market on there? And the reason I ask that is because as a horse transport business, even I have had people commenting saying you're exploiting horses because I'm transporting the horses. So how do we deal with that and still want to post on social media and highlight how good we are and what we offer.
Yeah. And I think that's a really key point. It's been, one of those years where you're just like, oh my goodness, how do we do this? And I think this is where we've got to be really, really careful as equestrians as well, because if we are showing any sense of division or that we can't come together and we pull sides, that's what people see is us going, well, you shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't. And there's a lot of that going on about, all sorts of things, whether we should be riding horses, whether we should be using certain equipment, whether we should be training this way or that way. And we have to understand that everything evolves and none of us are perfect. And actually, when we come together and we, again, coach people through that so that they can see better, and we're about having better industry, I think that can help. And so we've got to really stand on our morals. And I think it's really key at the moment is we need to know what we stand for in the industry. And we need to be promoting good practice, leading by example, showing that there is more. And the only way to do that is to be vulnerable. And we have to be okay with being vulnerable. We are going to probably get those moments when people attack us and say stuff. I mean, I've had it this week. Somebody came at me and was like, oh, people like you, you don't care about the horses and all of this stuff. And I thought, you have no idea about me. And they don't. I did feel like saying back to him, well, you can pay my vet bill if you like, because that's got nothing to do with my horse being ridden. He'd got a sinus infection. That was a nice £300. So a lot of the time people they have perceptions about the industry. They have perceptions about horse owners and they're all rubbish. We know that. Like as soon as you say you even work in the horse industry, their brain goes into you do riding school. People don't even have the perception that the industry is bigger than riding schools. It's bigger than racing. There's so much more. And I think we actually have a duty to go out there and to show that and to be okay with people saying stuff, because actually it gives us a chance to learn. It gives us a chance to grow.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I agree with that.
And we can't improve it unless we're prepared to come out of the darkness and into the light and shine some light on it. And that means shining light on the good and the bad.
Okay, fair enough.
So I think, you have to get yourself to a position where it's like, okay, I'm here to do good. This is what I want to do. I'm going to show that. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to be okay if somebody comes at me. And it is horrible. It does feel really hard, but it's like, I'm going to be okay, because a lot of the time it's about them more than it's about you.
Absolutely.
And if you're in, if this is your ethos to do, and it's partly why I do what I do, because I want to make the industry better. I want to show that I've met hundreds and thousands of amazing people in this industry, and they do great work, and we genuinely do care about the animals, and they do need care, and they do need attention. It doesn't matter what your core beliefs are as such. I think we're all good people. We can all find a way through it and work together and support each other in that. And I think that's really key. It's what I do with my support network. That's a place where people can come and go, this has happened, and have that safe space where we can all go, right, how do we work through this together?
Exactly. And I don't think there's anyone in the equestrian industry, regardless of what's gone on, that isn't of the same sort of thinking as you. You know, we're in with the horses because we love them. We want to care for them. Same, very much. It's not the same, but similar to having a dog. You know, you love it, you care for it. It's a pet. It's what we're all like, really, deep down. And again, I do resonate with your point about people don't realise the size of this industry. It's not just riding schools. People are surprised when I say I transport horses. They said, how can there possibly be an industry for that? Now, have you seen how many horses there are in the racing world, on all the different disciplines? So people that are commenting, it does seem perhaps slightly removed and don't understand what goes on. And maybe make us doing this podcast, doing the work that you do, making people aware of what we do and why we do it, actually will help.
Educate people. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Because a lot of the time those people come back because they're not actually educated. They've probably never even touched a horse.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, and they come up with these silly, crazy assumptions. And it's like, there's always going to be a need to transport a horse. Like, you've got to get them to a vet sometimes. Sometimes you've got to get them up to Newmarket so they can have an operation if they've got colic. You know, that's caring for horses, but people don't see that.
No, absolutely.
Because they're not educated. And I think sometimes we've got, as an industry, we've got that duty to get out there and to show it. And social media is a great tool for us to be able to do that.
Absolutely.
But it does take a level of I'm going to be okay with whatever comes at me from this, as long as I'm doing the right thing. Yeah. And I'm trying to do the right thing, and I'm honest and I'm open. And if I'm wrong, I'm prepared to be honest and open about that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we can make it make a big difference.
Yeah, no, I like that. And so then when you are going to coach someone on the social media side of it, forgetting all what we've just discussed, so now you've got a client, you're going to help them with their social media. Where would you start with them to start doing something? Because most equestrians that I know don't post a single piece on, not because they don't want to, but because they don't have the time. Why would people be interested in that? So where would you start with anyone in the equestrian industry?
Yeah, and this is really hard because there's so many people out there and they teach social media and then everybody gets into this state of I can't do anything and they get sort of overwhelmed and it makes it even worse. What I say is I normally go with the scales of training on this. So I'll be like, okay, the first thing we need to do is just find you a rhythm that you can stick to. We won't worry about getting the post right. You can only improve what you are doing. So we can improve the post, but we can't improve the post. We can't improve the quality of anything if you're not doing anything. So we start with, okay, what can you reasonably do to get you to be consistent on social media or to get out there? And you don't have to post every day. You don't even have to post every week if you don't want to, but I would say you need to be posting once a month minimum. Just because when people look up a business and they're looking for you, if you haven't posted anything in the last month, their brain, and they see they're going to go, are they even in business?
Absolutely.
So I'm like, let's just find a rhythm. First of all, let's get some ideas and keep it really simple. And then from there, we can work on improving things. We could then look at, okay, how do you use reels? How do you get more reach? But you can't improve something if you haven't actually got anything to improve. But again, it's getting a really clear message, making sure that you're able to say what you do clearly on social media, and then just some ideas for the first few posts. Start with the rhythm, and then you can find your suppleness. And you go, okay, right, how do I make this what I want for me? And it's about practice. And so a lot of the time it's video and it's people getting to see you, getting to know you, and people don't want to do that. But there are so many ways that we can coach you through to make that happen. And so even then, I've been doing some social media for one of my clients who's a retail business. And I said, you've got to give it a couple of weeks, but we've got to get the rhythm going. So I've helped her to create some content. We've got it out there, and she's now started, like 3 weeks down the line, she's now starting to see sales of what we've actually been promoting. Wow. It's doable, and it's doable really quickly, but a lot of the time we end up sort of stuck in fight or flight.
Yes. Yeah. No, okay, that's a really good tip for anyone at home. Just find a rhythm. I love how you put that. Find a rhythm, suppleness, using our own terminology to actually explain things.
I like to think of it a bit like learning to rise your trot when you're a beginner. When you got on, it was like that, I can't do anything. And it's like, no, we just start with the counting. Like, let's just get you going up and down. And then from there, we can then tidy up your position. We can then get everything else sorted. But you've got to start somewhere. And I would just say, start with the rhythm. And then we can look at that and go, okay, what worked, what didn't work, what we're going to ditch, how we're going to improve it. But you can't improve it if you're not doing it. No,
absolutely. I think that's a key message for anyone listening is we get stuck in our own heads. And whilst we can do lots of mindset discussions and look at it, it is a case of take that one step, do that, and just you got to get out of.
Yeah. Be brave enough to be bad at it.
Yes, exactly that. Because you're not going to become a master without doing it. You can't go from not doing something to, I'm amazing at it. So just don't worry
it's like
when
people say, but Jenni, you do it really well. It's like, but I've been doing social media for, what year did I start my last business? 2007.
Right, wow.
Right, a long time.
Was it even launched then?
Seriously, it was Facebook. We didn't have Instagram. Yes. We didn't have it was literally Facebook. So we had at that stage, and it's sort of grown. Now you've got so many more options. You've got Instagram, you've got TikTok, you've got LinkedIn, and whatever. It's about finding where your people are and then just getting your rhythm there. But I've been doing it a long time, and I've been doing YouTube a long time, like videos and things. Everybody's like, "But you're so confident on video," but I haven't always been. No, exactly. There was a time when I was rubbish. I could probably go and find some videos, and they're really bad. Yeah, like they're really, really bad. And so I cringe. But you can't improve it until you're actually doing it.
You're doing it. That's exactly it. And it's the same as speaking. Myself, I've been trying to work on my speaking, and I was expecting results. I could just walk into a room now. I've done some education in it and be a perfect speaker, but that isn't the case because I haven't done it. I haven't practiced it. So I really resonate with that.
Yeah, it's just a skill. Yeah. It's a tool and it's a skill. And in order to use it, we just need to know how to do it, and we need to be able to practice.
Yeah. No, fantastic. Awesome. So now I'd like to look a little bit more at some of the other things you said. So systems. Can I bring up that up? Just bring it up, just to touch on it, because again, it's something that people listening might really need. And where do you start with it? Because there's software options, there's manual ways of doing things. So how does somebody who's never thought about systems think about implementing something?
Okay, so what I would say, I mean, it does depend on what business you're in.
Of course.
Because different things but I just start with writing down everything that you do in a day or in a week. And then from there going, okay, how can I make this easier? Because once it's written down, you might even go, why am I doing that? Why am I doing this? And then take those out and suddenly you've got it more streamlined and you're able to then use that to go, right, let's find a better way of doing this. Let's put this in place. But I like to start with what I call like a bit of a transition track. So I have like a spreadsheet, just basic spreadsheet with what you do in terms of, I base it off what my Gallup strategy. So it's about getting in front of people. It's actually marketing. So what am I doing to get in front of people? Write everything down. What am I doing to sell? So your aids to sell is my second one, aids to sell. It's like putting your leg on. If you want to make sales, you've got to put your leg on. Mm-hmm. So what are you doing to make sales? Then looking after you, and this is key. So the first L is always looking after you, because you've got to make sure that you look after you in the business. If you don't look after yourself in terms of your health, the way that you're running your day, you're taking breaks, you're getting enough sleep, your mindset is in the right place, your business is going to be rubbish anyway. Sorry, you just can't run a business if you don't look after yourself. You're no good to anybody.
Yeah.
So it's like, what have you got that you need to put in place to look after you every day?
Absolutely.
And then the next L, of course, is looking after clients. So what if you need there? So it could be, okay, I need to put in cancellation policies. I need to put in like how I actually deliver what I do, all of that stuff that you do with clients. Then you look at the actual operations. So that's the back end of the business, so like the admin stuff. What have you got there? Finances. You've got, you could be putting in, oh, my brain's just gone dead. But anything that you do in the back end of the business, that goes under O for operations. And then you've got the P, which I like to think about, products and pricing and finances and making sure that you're making a profit. And then once you've sort of brainstormed everything that you've got there, we can then write everything out separately, and then you can start to build, okay, what is my system? So like when my husband had his stroke, I'd already put in place what in the event of an emergency. I've got it written down.
Wow.
In the event of an emergency, this is what I do.
Oh, wow.
So straight away, I could go and copy my social media post, put it out there with a few tweaks. I could message everybody that I needed to because their numbers were there. And it reminded me, go to this, cancel all these people, send this message. Done. So it took me less than 15 minutes to implement that, because it was literally, I got a phone call. I had to get to London. And I'd got a full day of clients and coaching clients to do that day. So it was a way of putting it out there. And I've been very open about my journey with that, like from day one, because it's like, I'm going to be honest, like why I'm not a flaky person. If I cancel on somebody, there's normally a good reason.
Yep.
So it's like, this is what's happened. So, but having that decision made for me beforehand meant that when I was in that position, when my brain actually isn't in a position to make those decisions, I could just go, right, boom, that goes. But also I could then put that to my assistant and go, can you do that, please? It's all written down. And I think that's a really good place to start, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it really does. In fact, it's very organised. I wish I was quite as organised as that. But you are right, that is a system, and you've put it in there. You've got your emergency system, you've got your day-to-day system, and it's all documented. So I think that's really valuable. And I think also just talking a little bit about, people get stuck with so much to do. They feel so busy and they feel, like you said, great about it, but actually if you bump up the tire, it would be a lot easier for you. So is it an idea that if people were doing that, is it, you write all these things down that you're doing and you go, well, actually, what is that worth? Is that worth me doing it? If that's a £2 an hour job, then you find someone else that could do that and you work on the £25 an hour job, for example. Is that sort of something you look at as well?
Yeah, exactly. But if you haven't looked at it, you don't know, do you?
No.
So I'm often like, okay, now look at it. What are you going to do? What are you going to ditch? What are you going to delegate? And sometimes there's so much that we're doing because we've just got in that habit, well, this is the way it's always done. This is how I do it. But it's actually pointless. It's a waste of time. Things have moved on. You don't need to do that. And there's so many things that we can implement to save you time, but also build your business.
Yes.
Really, really easy. There's a lot of automations out there.
Yeah.
AI is amazing. There's a lot of things that you can put in place because, again, even when we were talking about social media, there's a lot of things that you can put in so that actually you are responding to comments, you are sending stuff out, and you don't actually have to do it. But you don't know until you've actually sat down and gone, right, this is what I'm going to do. this is how I want it to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's sort of where I come back to with this particular industry. It's very challenging to open people's minds to that way of those possibilities. That's what I've experienced, because like you say, no one lifts their head, above the parapet and looks at what else is going on in the world. All these other industries are all automated and cutting back and saving money, but for some reason we don't feel like we can do that.
No, and I think it's scary. It's a bit like getting a new horse, isn't it? You don't know what you got. So it's easier to just stick with the one that you've got and the way that it's working, rather than go, actually, I could do better here.
Yeah.
And thinking, right, what do I need to bring in? What can I bring in? And who can I bring in to help me so that it's not so scary? So again, it could be, say, as you mentioned, like outsourcing, finding somebody that can do things that actually is not your area of gift. And I think that's really, really, really important if we want to grow sustainable businesses.
No, absolutely. So obviously you're wearing a top today. It's Equestrian Business Support Network, which I obviously looked a little bit about online. Why is it important for people to network?
I think networking makes such a big difference, because when you find your tribe, you don't feel so alone, especially in the equine industry. There's a lot of solo workers. There's a lot of people running their businesses on their own, and it can be really, really lonely. But also that's how we make things better, because you're kind of like, well, that person has got something and I never even thought of it that way. And they could, just having the right circle around you can really make your business grow. I mean, we all know that if you've got the wrong people around you, you're going to become a bit like those people. So actually it's getting in those positions where you've got people that support you, people that get it. And also, just growing. Like it's really important to your business growth. Like I get a lot of referrals from my network. Sometimes people that have never even worked with me, but again, when they've met somebody and they've gone, well, actually you need some help, or you need to speak to Jenni.
Right, wow. Powerful.
And so, even if it's not directly related to your business, who might know somebody else who knows somebody else who then points them back to you. So it can really grow your business and your income just by growing your network.
Do you feel, maybe it's just the perception that I've known, but do you feel there's a lot of competition though, that people don't want to share things like that?
I think people are stuck in that.
Yeah.
Like they're worried about that. But could you imagine if you went to a competition and everybody was like, I'm not going to participate because you... Or like suddenly if everybody in the collecting ring just decided to cover themselves up and hide, it'd be ridiculous, wouldn't it? So it's like, actually competition is amazing, because actually when we've got that competition, we can actually choose our own path. We can actually find what they're doing and what we're doing and make it better. We can differentiate ourselves.
Right, yeah.
And I've found sometimes the best collaborators are people who are in competition with you to some extent, because when you've got somebody that wants something and they've come to you and you're like, no, this person isn't a good fit for me, actually they might be for your competition. So you can help each other out. Or if you're busy, you can be like, okay, I'm going to ask my competitor, could they help me out here? And I think we need to do more of that in the industry, especially with like physios, body workers. I don't know, how true is it in sort of transport? Are you good at helping each other out in that, or is it like, oh, I don't want to lose competition?
I think there's a very good amount of people in the industry that help each other out, absolutely. But there are the few which are not like that. But I think that's in every industry. I just wasn't sure from your perspective whether us as the equestrian are more like that than perhaps, other people like our property networks and things.
I think we have. But again, it comes down to mindset, doesn't it? Yeah. And like how we feel and like having this, I want them to be mine. Like that's my client. But actually it's like, walk down the street. Like I go to buy coffee. I buy coffee from every coffee shop you can possibly think of, right? And nobody's fighting over me being their client, because actually sometimes supply and demand, like the more people out there doing it means that there's more people that want what you're doing, and it can actually create, it can just build the industry for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. No, I think, thinking about the transport a little bit more since you mentioned that. There's definitely a collective consensus that we help each other. Obviously you're going to get the one or two which aren't like that, but that is how it is. And it is so much better to be able to, if you're overrun with work, there's nothing worse than turning people away. You'd rather say, so-and-so will do that for you, and then you've kept the client happy, so they're still going to come back to you. There's always a risk that they'll move somewhere else. But if you have had such a rapport with those people, actually the collaboration is more valuable to have helped them than not. Yeah,
I think it's a bit, almost turning the horse out, having that trust, like turn the horse out of the field, taking the head collar off and trusting they'll come back when you call it. And if you've done your job properly, you shouldn't have anything to worry about, should you?
No, exactly.
So if you've served them And that's all about, can I help this client today? Can I help them? And if I can't physically help them, it's like, how else can I help them? You've done your job.
Yeah.
And they'll remember that and they'll come back to you. Whereas if you're just like, no, can't help you, they'll remember that too.
Absolutely. And you don't want the negative connotation associated with you, do you?
Exactly.
No, it's brilliant. Okay, so this conversation has been amazing. Thank you ever so much. Now I'd really like, just because of who you are and what you do, I think it's really important for us as in the equestrian space. So what is it that you are now focused on and specialising in? How can you help other equestrian businesses?
Yeah, so for me, I'm mainly doing coaching and mentoring, and I do that through my group program and one-to-one stuff. And so my aim is just to actually help anybody that's feeling a little bit stuck, whatever level that you're at. I think there's support that we can give. And so my mission is to just help you actually get unstuck, to feel that you've got that support, to feel that actually this industry can be amazing, and just to give you those places, whether it's working with me for free in my Equestrian Business Support Network, or actually working with me in a group situation, so you're not on your own. So you get some mentoring, you get some support, you get one-to-one, or actually if you're thinking, do you know what, I really want to go all in, I do sort of one-to-one coaching.
Okay. And that's exactly why I started this podcast, because I was talking to you earlier about it. I started it as a business podcast, but then I just noticed that there's so much space for almost like a revolution, like revolutionizing the equestrian space, because I just feel we're a bit out of date. So would you sort of say that's the same from your experience? We're just a little bit behind the trends?
Yeah, I think we are in many ways, and it's about bringing the industry up to today, but also we've got so much good that we need to be sharing, and we've got so many opportunities that we're just not taking, and we need to be able to do that. And I think we need a revolution, because it's the only way the industry is going to survive.
Yep.
Again, just in terms of social licensing and everything else that's going on, if we don't lead by example and we don't step up, that we could be facing some big problems coming down the road, and I don't want that. We're too good. Don't want that.
We're very good. And that is a perfect point to end the conversation. So thank you ever so much for coming along. It's been great to have you on the show. And we'll leave all of your links and everything in the comments, in the show notes. And thank you ever so much for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for having me, George. I really appreciate that. And then if anybody wants to find me, you can find me on all good social media platforms at the Equine Business Mentor.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Take care. Thank you.